Hello, welcome to the video notes for lesson 4-6. This begins on page 25 in your notes section. And this lesson is about converting an equation to slope-intercept form. So, our lesson target. I can convert an equation into slope-intercept form. Now, we've already learned about slope-intercept form. Hopefully you remember what that is. I'm going to write it down for you. Slope-intercept form is simply y equals mx plus b. So the big idea here is that we want to isolate y. We want to get y by itself on one side, and then everything else on the other side will be the mx plus b. Our slope, our y-intercept, and our input value. Okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the first one. Essentially, we're going to use our equation solving skills, our inverse operation skills to solve this. So I'm actually going to draw train tracks because, yes, it's kind of like solving an equation. You probably remember this from earlier in the year when we solved literal equations. That's what this skill is. Alright, so, first step here, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And look at that. I get y by itself. That's what I wanted. Equals. Now, I still have the negative 1/3 x. There's no x next to this number that I'm subtracting, so they're not like terms. So I need to just write this next to it, minus 3. And believe it or not, this is the answer that we were looking for, at least for the equation. Now, actually the question says find the slope and the y-intercept. So now that we have rewritten our equation, we can identify the slope, which is the number next to x, which is negative 1/3. And actually, you probably could have found that originally anyways. But it's always good to set it up like this because sometimes if we have to multiply both sides or divide both sides by something, this number will change. And then the b is negative 3. Remember, that means it's the point 0, negative 3, the y-intercept. Okay? Alright. The next equation. So we have 5y equals 25x minus 15. What's wrong with this? Well, I bet some of you are already saying, well, we've got a 5 next to the y, and we don't want that. So how do you take care of that? What's the inverse operation? You're going to divide both sides by 5. Now, when I say divide both sides, I mean everything over here needs to be divided by 5, not just one part of it. That's the biggest mistake that students make is they only divide the one of these terms and not the whole thing. So I have y equals 25x divided by 5 is 5x. Negative 15 or minus 15 divided by 5 is negative 3 or minus 3. And look at that. We have it in y equals mx plus b form. So finding the slope and the y-intercept is pretty easy. We've got 5 and we have negative 3. Okay, so far, not too bad. Let's take a look at, we've got 2 more problems below this. Now these ones are going to get a little more complicated, but not too bad. If you want to try it on your own, you could pause the video and then solve it and then come back and turn the video on and see if you get it correct. I'm going to go ahead and start working through it, so see if this makes sense to you. This time, I've got both variables on the same side, and I've got a number or a constant all by itself. So I've got to get, first I've got to take care of the x and get it over on the other side. So I'm going to add 6x to both sides. Now 6x and 10 are not like terms, so it's just going to be 10 plus 6x. Or actually, I'm so used to putting the term with the variable first, I'm going to switch them around. Why can I do that? Well, it's addition, that's why. I still have the negative 2y on this side. Now be careful. Typical mistake students make is they forget the sign somewhere along the way. This is important because it's going to affect everything when I do my next step. Now I've got to divide everything by negative 2. When I did the problem up above, I just put a line under the whole thing. This time I'm going to show this another way. Some of you may prefer to do this when you divide both sides by a negative, or by a number I should say. So you can either put a line under everything in whatever you're dividing by, or put it under each of them. Turn it into a fraction, whatever you want to do. So we've got y equals, because the negative 2's cancel out or become 1y. 6x divided by negative 2, you got it, negative 3x, plus 10 divided by negative 2. Well, 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. So you can either do plus negative 5 or just minus 5. Remember, subtraction is the same as adding a negative. I always prefer just to turn my adding a negative into, or leave it as, subtraction. Okay, now I'm not done. I still have to identify my slope and y-intercept. You know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you do that. This should be pretty simple. And then share your answers in math if you want to earn some points on your scoreboard. Okay, the next one, the last problem. So, we want to get it in y equals mx plus b form. I've got a lot to do here. I have parentheses. So no, the first step that you do cannot be to add 1, because the 1 is inside the parentheses. I would actually suggest that you divide both sides by negative 3. Now, another way to think of dividing by negative 3 is multiplying by negative 1/3. If you want to do that, that's fine. I'm going to write it in a different way. Now that I divided by negative 3, I can get rid of the parentheses around the y plus 1. And I've got x over negative 3. Now, how many x's do I have? I have 1. Now, we usually don't put a 1 here, but I'm going to do it because that's going to play a big part in our last step when we're identifying what the slope and y-intercept are. Okay, so last step here is to subtract 1 from both sides, and you get y equals 1x over negative 3 minus 1. Now we could have actually done this one a different way. If some of you were probably looking at this and saying, well, can I distribute the negative 3? Yes, you can. If you did that, let me split my workspace up. If you did that, you would get negative 3y plus negative 3, or let's do minus 3. Oops. This should be a y, not an x. Equals x. Now, what step would you do first? Add 3 to both sides. And we get negative 3y equals x plus 3. Then you divide both sides by negative 3. Remember, you're going to divide everything by negative 3. And this gives you y equals x over negative 3 plus 3 divided by negative 3, which is negative 1. So plus negative 1 or just minus 1. Alright, so same thing. It doesn't matter which strategy you use, you get the same thing. Again, on your own, I want you to identify what the slope and y-intercept are. If you share your answers without me having to ask for it, I will give you points on your scoreboard. If you forget to share your answers, or if nobody speaks up, well then, I guess you don't want any points on your scoreboard. If you don't understand what's going on, go back and rewatch the video. Come and see me for help. Ask a friend or a parent for help. Good luck, and we'll see you in math.